Exactly. I'm Olivia Otieno. This is Double O Direct, live on the homepage standardmedia.co.ke. We're also simulcasting on KTN News. You need to join this amazing conversation with Pat Okello, Marianne Nyangi. We're talking about getting women into business and helping them become successful by also having them get access to funding. Now, I want to understand what kinds of funding is out there, because I know a lot of women who are in business and have never ever even applied for funding. It always seems like something mythical, something beyond their reach. And I was like, no, there are so many opportunities for funding. You just have to get your papers in order and have the confidence to go after it. I see you nodding, Pat. Tell me more.
So a woman in business, for you to access this funding, you really need to do a lot of research in terms of positioning of your business. Yes. So the first way in which most of us started our business was what we call friends, family, and fools. Because anybody who's willing to believe in your product, you're just selling to them, man, please, I just need an investment of 100K, etc. And that's how most of us started our first business, yeah? And that's great money. It's great money because it comes without really, hopefully with no strings attached, unless you have a very savvy person in your family and friends who will then take debt in your business, which is now what we call people taking equity, which is literally the last thing you should give, I believe, in a business is equity. You should kind of like exhaust all other funding mechanisms before you go for that.
So equity is basically giving someone a percentage of your business.
Correct, yeah. So in between that, then we have for women specifically is grant funding. Now, a lot of women in our network also are running social enterprises. So there's a sense of consciousness in terms of what is the impact of my business on earth, really. And a lot of women go into that because we're nurturers. We're natural nurturers, and we want to leave this place a better place than we found it. And there is money around that, especially now with climate change and things around that. These, how do people access the grants? Is one of the questions that people then ask. This is where the importance of being part of a community comes in, and there are lots and lots of women communities out there. For us guys in our what we call ESOs, which is entrepreneurial support organizations, we have ASEC, we have countrywide hubs, and this is where a lot of the information is then disseminated trickle down to the entrepreneur, and there's a lot of opportunities. The thing about these grants is that you get better. The more you apply, the more you get better at applying. So you'll get a lot of rejections. We don't expect a grant on your first attempt, right? So you keep doing it, and as you're doing, you get better. You begin to learn the language that these the people who are giving the grants what they're looking for.
Is there an online resource of here was a successful grant application template, not template, but just to give you an understanding of, well, we awarded this grant based on this, look how great their financials were, look great how this business profile was, or this template. Is there something that we can go up to and say, okay, I want to start a new lipstick line, right? So and so was awarded money for their nail polish range, right? Learnings from that. Does something like that exist, or is this trial and error for everybody?
ChatGPT. But really, the University of Google, there's everything there on YouTube. Yes. Depending on what kind of, you're a learner like me who learns more visually, go to YouTube, and there's lots of resources there. It's unbelievable the amount of resources that are there, and as well on Google as well. But in terms of how to write a grant, all those questions are answered there, right? But what we do when you're part of a community like Kayana is that we would then offer you classes and masterclasses and bring people who have already done it to come and share their experience on how they did it.
I love that. Speaking of the University of Google, shout out to Dorothy Oko and Charles Marito. Marianne, you had a question?
Yes, I in fact, Pat has just talked about it, but about a month or two ago, Pat invited me for an event where there was this group of investors that had come into the country and were willing to come and meet a few entrepreneurs.
Yes.
And my eyes were just popped open, just listening to all these women entrepreneurs. Most of them were women.
Do you know where they were from? The UK, the US, South Africa?
No, but the Kenyan entrepreneurs who had already gotten funding.
Yes.
And they're so confident, and there are a lot of these women who have actually gotten grants and funding, but most of the investors were from the US, San Francisco, from Nigeria, and those are Chinese as well. Yes. So just putting yourself out there as an entrepreneur, knowing where these events are happening, these associations, which association can I join? Yes. If you join Kayana, if you join GWC, if you join Women in Business or whatever it is, you're more likely to be able to know about this funding and these investors when they're coming.
Yes.
So as a woman, just putting yourself out there is critical.
Is it important to associate yourself with women on boards or women, on boards or women who are also in public and private sector? How important is that when you're looking at becoming an entrepreneur?
The big thing is networking, Olivia, right? You need to network. So it's so easy for us to just get so caught up in the work and the everyday things that we're doing with our business that we get cut out to what's happening around the world. So networking is extremely important. When we published a candid handbook for women doing business in Kenya, we then formed a networking community, which is Circles for Women in Business, right? And through Circles for Women in Business, people who are both in business, people who are thinking about business, people in the corporate space, and people who are giving opportunities for women in business all network and come together and meet. And networking is such an important part of trust building, I believe. And so that's what we do. That's why we host the event 5 times a year specifically for that. So networking is huge.
What businesses are women running? What businesses are women starting? On average, what are women in? Where are the gaps for them also to maybe penetrate? Yeah.
So women are mainly in trading. We're traders. So we're importing and exporting. Yeah. However, for us at Kayana, and I'll leave Marianne to speak more deeply into the trading aspect, we focus on trying to get more women to manufacture products and value add, because that's where really the profits are to be made. So things like we've got a lot of women in fashion, in beauty, in health, in anything around home improvement, etc. And then, of course, in the service sector. So we have a lot of women who come from the corporate world and become experts and then become either consultants or etc. and are offering their services and become part of the community. But the bulk of women go into the known. So it's around food, fashion, and home improvements. Yeah, so it could be interior design, etc. And that's where we find the bulk of our members will generally be in. And why are we talking about manufacturing? And it's because for any country to grow their GDP, there has to be some level of manufacturing. Some of the challenges we're faced in Kenya right now when it comes to things like dollar shortage, etc., is because of that deficit of trade, where we're not exporting as much as we are importing. So micro manufacturing and what we call the cottage industry is really a core part of really what we do with entrepreneurs. Get them to make products, get them to get the global certification for those products in order for them to trade in the international markets.
What are some of the barriers for women in getting into manufacturing? Because I've interviewed a couple of women. In fact, the leader previously of Kenya Associated Manufacturers, Phyllis Wakiaga, and then currently Kenya Private Sector Alliance lead, both women, right? So you're telling me that we're not manufacturing, yet we're leading the associations with regards to manufacturing. So what is stopping us primarily from getting into manufacturing?
I think the big thing is seeing more women that are doing it, I think that's a big part, because women, that's how we learn.
Yes.
Yeah, we learn from seeing more. And I think, and shout out to the people you've mentioned, because they have made an impact in encouraging women to go into business by highlighting those women who are in manufacturing, like the women in manufacturing that was started by a personal friend, Flora Mutahi. So that makes a difference. The thing,
Melvin's Tea,
correct.
Flora, yes, we're supposed to meet at some point. Pole, I need to call you back.
Exactly. And so seeing more and more of these entrepreneurs tell their stories, of course, will encourage more women to go into it. And I'll speak again about Flora, is mentoring, coming up with structured ways in which you can mentor other women in manufacturing. So you might not be able to have a lot of time to do one-on-one, but you can bring them in groups and they go through a mentoring process, connecting them to your own network for them to be able to succeed in the area. Now, everything is a step-by-step process, Olivia. Initially, you may be making your products at home. I think we talked about a designer and a fundi, and it'll start from there. But really, as you grow your business, you're not going to, for me as a graphic designer, the graphic designer I studied 20 years plus before, and now what my designers are doing in their studio, I honestly, it doesn't matter. Even if I had that skill set, I won't be able to plug in and do the work. So as you scale and grow, things do change.
And let go.
And let go and release.
Learn to let go. Cut the umbilical cord.
And release. Yeah. So I think the big part is when you become the head and the CEO of your business, is to constantly stay in touch with what the industry, what's happening in the industry. Now, you may have started by mixing your butters, etc., in the house. You taught your house help how to do it, and she became your first employee. As you were doing more and more, you realized that you needed to automate the system, and really just follow those steps that you're going to. I have somebody who did that whole step, and now when she's doing the line, she has a hair product, and when she's doing the line where she needs to contract, she will go to one of the larger manufacturers and rent one line of their product for a period of time for her to be able to fill her 1,000 bottles, etc., and bring it to market. So as you enter these networks of the CAMs, etc., you will meet people who are supporting small and micro businesses to ensure that you're bringing product to market. There are people who are there, institutions that are there to support small businesses.